Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Intelligent Training, Holistic Health. We are your hosts, James and Francesca, and today we are going to be discussing why your diets keep failing. So in this episode, we are going to discuss the main component about what makes a diet work, or especially a fat loss diet work.
And one of those main components we'll get straight into are calories.
Yes.
Can you explain to everybody, first of all, what a calorie actually is?
A calorie, yes, I can. So what a calorie is basically just a unit of energy. So that's how we want to think of it. So when they're determining what a calorie is in the lab, a calorie is determined by how much energy is required to heat 1 gram of water by 1 degree Celsius. Okay, so this is how they determine what a calorie is. And then each calorie is broken down into, or is comprised of, either proteins, carbs, or fats, and alcohol. But they are the main three: protein, carbs, and fats.
Yeah, alcohol's the one. It's like the friend we don't talk about.
It's a friend we don't talk about, but we should talk about because everyone drinks it.
Yes,
and
mostly.
Yeah, and it's fabulous. So, okay, so if we are talking alcohol is what is called a priority nutrient within the body. So when you consume alcohol has to be burnt off before anything else in the body.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to get rid of alcohol before you can continue in burning fat or carbs or even protein. Okay, so just think about that. So when you do drink, you will take your body out of a fat burning state, and you'll have to burn off that alcohol before you can get back into a fat burning state.
Yeah.
So this is why, if people, for example, bodybuilders, they're not going to be drinking kind of pre-contest, because they want to be burning fat as much as possible.
Yeah.
So that we kind of went on a tangent, but that's alcohol. And then we have the other three, which is protein and carbs and fats. And these three, so they're called macronutrients because we need them in macro quantities, so big quantities.
Mm-hmm.
And these nutrients all have different amounts of calories per gram. So for example, protein has 4 calories per gram. Carbohydrates also has 4 calories per gram. And then fats has 9 calories per gram.
Which you can understand then and see why fat gives you, people think, and it's great to consume nuts.
Yeah, it's good to consume a lot of fats, but it's just so much easier to overconsume.
Yeah, and that's my point, is that you have people swap maybe some, I don't know, cake, snacks, biscuit, the biscuits you can get, the granola bars and all those kind of things that people snack at their
desks.
Your
favorite Mr. Kipling's.
Yeah, but then a lot of them are filled with nuts, and if you don't read the back of the calories, or you have a bag of nuts at your desk and you're picking at those and you don't look at the calories on the back, that's when you can realize, because they are a higher fat content, that it's much easier to consume a larger amount of calories in a small portion of food. And I think this is really important when people are looking at what calories are, tracking calories, understanding it for their diet, not understanding the difference in the macronutrients and what calories are in each macronutrient can also have a detrimental effect on your fat loss diet, because you're not really understanding what you're consuming. Yeah,
for sure. So that can go into something we're going to talk about a bit later on, but that is the kind of energy density versus nutrient density.
Yeah.
So like Franny says, even though nuts are very nutrient dense, they are also very energy dense as well. So on a fat loss diet, if you have a small amount of calories that you can consume per day because you want to lose weight, eating things like nuts might not be the best way to consume your fats, because they are very, very energy dense and they're not going to keep you that full.
Yeah.
So nuts aren't too bad actually, but something like peanut butter would be a lot easier to consume than actual nuts itself. Because
who eats peanut butter out of the jar?
I do.
That's the
peanut butter,
and that's if you put, I don't know what, I think they call it a 15-gram serving or something of peanut butter. That's like is that a teaspoon or a tablespoon?
Not a teaspoon.
Is that a teaspoon?
Yeah.
Oh, if I'm wrong, tell us. Anyway, that is a hell of a lot of calories in that really small amount.
Yeah, I was tiny.
So
I'll scoop those in.
I'll scoop that in.
Far from in a fat loss phase, as you can probably tell.
But
a little chubbier than usual.
No, you're not. But if you are in a fat loss phase, these are the things that you've just got to be aware of.
Yeah. Very true.
Is portion sizing, and particularly when you're looking at your macronutrients, because fat is so energy dense.
Yeah. So getting back to the whole calorie thing, so any diet will work if you are burning more calories than you are consuming.
Yeah. So, God, what are some popular diets? I mean, I'm probably going quite old school, but like the Atkins diet, I can't remember what that one was.
That's like keto. So, and this is another thing. So things like Atkins or keto, they basically remove one macronutrient. And the macronutrient everyone normally removes when dieting is carbohydrates.
Just as a question, how many of you, think to yourself now, have decided really quickly, I don't know, I've got a wedding or I've got a dress to fit into next week or a suit, and I'm just going to cut carbs out for the week and drop that weight. Now, do you think it's fat loss that you're dropping, or do you think it's just weight? Because this is a big difference. Yeah.
So this is that's a good one actually. So this is what fighters will do pre-fight, because they have to get down to a certain weight class. So if you're losing, so if you are going to lose, it's actually quite a good strategy. If you are going to lose weight just to get into a dress and you only have a week, because once you do pull carbohydrates out of the diet, it takes another 3 or 4 molecules of water. So that's another 3 or 4 grams of water with every 1 gram of carbohydrate. So the actual weight you're losing is really water weight. But if you just want to actually lose weight just to get a dress, then that's okay. But if your goal is fat loss, stripping carbohydrates isn't the best idea for many other reasons. But people think stripping carbohydrates is a good idea just because of the initial weight loss. They think that is fat loss, but it's actually just water weight. Yeah.
So prime example was you were saying about UFC fighters or any fighters, you know, they've got a weight class that they're fighting in.
Yeah.
And they're not going to hang around in that weight all year and up to training. They do a weight cut before the weigh-ins for the fight to get down to that weight. And then immediately after they've had their weigh-in, check, their fight is usually the next day.
Yeah.
So they go home or wherever and they consume a lot of carbohydrates and other foods to put that weight back on, and that's what will happen immediately, right?
So there's a whole strategy behind it, but just know that by pulling carbs out of diet, you will take water with it. And as soon as you do introduce carbs again and you rehydrate, then you will fill back up.
So remember, that is really, it's not fat loss. So just clarify that it's not fat loss. It is weight loss, and it's a short-term solution to possibly a goal that you want to have sustainable long-term.
So when we are thinking of fat loss, then the number one thing you have to adhere to is the calorie deficit. So you have to be burning more calories than you are consuming. So you can't get away from that. That's a law. That's in nutritional science. That's like one of the things we clearly know, and we don't know much in nutritional science, but that is one thing that is completely solidified. So you can't get away from that. So even if you think you are eating less than you are burning, is that right?
You're not.
Then normally it's down to a tracking issue. It's not down to something within you that's the issue. It is normally down to a tracking issue. So normally it is down to human error.
And I think that ties nicely into talking about how to track calories. But first of all, I think what would be really important to talk about is how much discussing our basal metabolic rate, which we'll explain shortly, and how much that is such a large determining factor of how many calories you burn within a day individually, and then all the add-ons on top.
So the whole calories in versus calories out equation. So that's what we're talking about when we kind of say energy balance. So getting calories into the body is extremely easy. All you got to do is open your mouth.
Highly palatable foods everywhere.
Crisps.
Very energy dense foods everywhere. So it's easy. I don't know. Again, an example, just a quick example. You have a plate of chicken, broccoli, potatoes, whatever it is. It's quite a plain meal. That would be such a large quantity and probably very similar calories to
a couple of cookies.
A couple of cookies, yeah. A couple of cookies from the biscuit tin. And which one is more satiating?
Yeah.
We all know the big plate is, but which one is more palatable?
Yeah.
It's the cookies probably the most.
Yeah. So a lot of this will come down to kind of the emotional side of dieting and how that's so ingrained in us, so ingrained in our biology, just from years and years and years and years back, which we will not get into today, but we could possibly get into at some other point.
A whole other podcast.
Yeah. But so just get back to the calories. Where were we?
So that's calories in versus calories out. This is the most important one.
Yeah. So the calories in, obviously, as we said, is very easy to consume. One thing, if you are tracking, so for calories in, so on the back of packets within, for example, the supermarket, they are legally allowed to be out by 20%.
Yeah.
So it's never going to be dead on. So think if you've got a food that is 100 calories, that food could either be 80 or could be between 80 and 120 calories.
Yeah.
So it's not always going to be exact. So that's one thing to think about as well. But it is going to be pretty out consistently.
Yeah.
So don't take that as, oh, it's 20% out. There's no point me tracking. There is 100% good reason to track. And I think tracking is a good tool for everybody to use at some point in their life. So we have tracked, or not anymore, but we used to track for years and years and years. I literally had a huge pink book. I'm not sure why it's pink. Don't even know why I mentioned it, but it was a lovely pink book. And I used to write down every single thing I would eat. So what time, how much protein, carbs, fats, the total calories. Yeah. And I do that for the entire day. And then at the end of the day, I would be able to tally exactly what I've eaten. So then if I needed to lose weight, or I needed to gain a little bit of muscle, I knew exactly what to put in, when to put it in. And you become kind of like a science experiment. But granted, it's not the funnest way to live your life, but it is a brilliant tool to use. So this is one thing I'll do with all of my clients that have never tracked. For 2 or 3 weeks, I'll get them to track absolutely everything they eat or drink, so they can see it laid out in front of them, and then they can start learning what is in food. So learning what is in food is such a brilliant tool to have, because we could both probably look at a meal and tell you roughly what the protein, what the carbs, what the fats is, and what the total calories are. Yeah. So if you can do that, then you're way ahead of the curve. Yeah. But most people don't have no clue what is in food. So especially with some of my clients that are very new to it, they will be shocked at what is in the food they eat. Yeah. They're like, oh, how do I get my protein from this? I'm like, well, you're eating cookies. You're not going to get your protein from that. So there is it's a brilliant tool, and I'd recommend everybody doing it. It can be a bit boring, but you will learn so much. And even going into the supermarkets, and when you're buying your things, look at the breakdown on the back of the packets, because a lot of things, proteins is a really important macronutrient, and it's something that we definitely need within our diets. But there's a lot of false advertisement on packets now saying this is high protein, or this has a great source of protein. And for example, for plant-based eaters, there's a lot of things that said, well, this is high in protein. You turn onto the back and you think, well, actually, I'd have to eat pretty large quantities of that for it to fall under the category of a high protein intake for me. Yeah. So I think just even looking at the protein servings usually they do it per 100 grams or something on a packet, don't they? Yeah. Even looking at that can start to get you way more aware of actually what you're consuming, not just looking at the advertising on the front of the package saying, well, this is high protein. So you pick it off the shelf and go, oh, brilliant. That's great. And a lot of the things are high protein per serving. And then you look at their serving, and their serving is 12 grams. Yeah. So it's always best to look at the 100 grams as well. So on the back, there will always be 100 grams, and then you can see what the nutrients are comprised of. So how much protein there is, how much fat there is, how much carbs there are. Yeah. Then you can always just look at those main 3. There will be a list of micronutrients in there as well. But if you look at the macronutrients, those main 3, that's what the food is really comprised of. And that's what you're looking for. And when we're talking about calories out, so we know how to get calories in. It's really easy. We open our mouths. We've got food everywhere. Yep. It's super easy to consume those calories. When we're looking at the calories leaving our body, can we explain to everybody what that comprises of? What things contribute to the calories leaving our body? Yep. So this is another thing that is very good to be aware of. So for this, I want you to imagine a pie chart, and we have 4 segments to this pie chart. So the first segment is BMR. So this is your basal metabolic rate. So this is the largest segment of the pie chart, and these are the calories you will burn at rest. So these are the calories you will burn lying down in bed doing absolutely nothing.
Just breathing.
So just breathing. So because your body has so many metabolic processes it has to go through every single day, there is a lot of nutrients are required just for those processes. So the majority of the nutrients that you need will be used in those processes. So for example, it'll be around 60 to 70% of your daily calories will go to just metabolic processes.
Mm-hmm. And just to bear in mind, you can be the same height, weight, sex as somebody else, and have a different basal metabolic rate.
So it's very personal.
So it's not a one size fits all. So again, avoid anybody who says this worked for me, that's going to work for you, just because you are of similar stature. And because everyone's metabolic processes will function differently as well, so there will be different rates to which you will need different nutrients. And then we get onto the second part, which is NEAT, which is non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So if you ever watched these podcasts and you see me, you'll probably see me twitching and doing weird things all the time. If you're watching it on YouTube.
If you're watching it on YouTube or Spotify. But so you'll see me twitching and doing weird things all the time. It's probably because I have ADHD and it was never diagnosed. But this will mean my NEAT is fairly high. So NEAT would comprise usually around 15% of the pie. So it's the next biggest segment. But for people like myself, it would probably be higher, probably be 20, 25%. Because I'm always so fidgety, I can't sit down for very long. I'm always moving. So NEAT is comprised of anything that is not designated exercise. So this would be like me twitching here or tapping my feet or the speed you walk. So things like that all add to your NEAT. Yeah,
I think it's really important when you just touched on the speed of walk as well. Because walking's a great tool, isn't it, to increase your NEAT throughout the day and increase your calorie burn. Lots of people though still walk quite slowly, and I always say try and walk with some intent. Try and walk with a purpose. Be in London for 5 minutes, you'll see everyone's walking for a purpose. But that's a really great one. And you do notice people who probably have a higher NEAT, exactly like James says, they twitch. You've probably noticed people perhaps in offices and things who sit there and their legs
their foot's always tapping,
or they're like this.
Something's always going.
Something's going, even if it's a thumb, and they're just tapping their hands. They are constantly moving. I am probably the
opposite side,
polar opposite side,
the sloth side.
I am sloth-like, aren't I? I'm very sloth-like.
So and then as you decrease calories, so if you've been in a calorie deficit for a long time, this happens to bodybuilders, their NEAT will naturally start decreasing. So you have to be aware of it to try and keep it up, because then you will actually start losing calories from that side, because you will start walking slower because your energy is down. You won't start fidgeting. You won't be twitching as much. Everything, your body starts slowing things down because it wants to conserve that energy, because it knows it hasn't had very much energy for a long time. So your body is a very efficient machine, so it will start slowing things down.
And this is great. So when you're when you're looking to lose body fat, and it is a long-term process, and you want to do it a little bit of a time rather than going crazy on a calorie deficit, because your body will end up trying to do things to conserve its energy naturally. But this is why it's really great to focus on your NEAT and look throughout the day where you can increase your NEAT and be really intentional about those purposes, so that you can. I'm really intentional because I am quite a calm person. Sometimes I'm calm I'm calm with my body. I just kind of sit there. We already established I'm a sloth. So I'm really intentional about making sure that I get up often, whether it's to get more water or to just move around, or I'll go take 5-10 minutes outside and go for walks and increase my steps. And I love having my watch to keep me in check with my steps, because for me, I have to be intentional, because otherwise I could not move for most of the day and then realize that I haven't by the end of the day, and you're trying to cram everything.
And that's a really cool thing. So as Franny, she knows this about herself, so then she puts things in place to set herself up for success.
Yeah.
Like she looks at her watch and she'll be like, oh, I haven't moved that much. Whereas because I'm fidgeting all the time, I wouldn't have to necessarily go for as many walks or do things outside because I am so fidgety. And I naturally just want to do things. I naturally just want to go.
Yeah.
So that's a really that's a cool thing. And what you said, what did you say about don't just like dramatically reduce your calories. You can do that. But I think it's a really cool thing in functional medicine. They say if you force the body, it will react. However, if you coax the body, it will respond. So if you do something very drastic, then the body will react. But if you coax it in, and this is like from if you set up a good diet protocol, then you'll coax the body and it will just respond and it will start losing fat so much easier.
It's that long-term goal again, isn't it? It's what everybody wants, the answer and the magic pill, and they want it yesterday.
Yeah.
And you have to do a little bit of a time and chip away each week. So if you're adding on some extra NEAT, so that's your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, if you're adding on extra movement week by week, if you just look back at your last week and go, okay, this is on average how much I move during the day, what is achievable now in this new week where I can add a little bit more on and increase my NEAT without going into drastic measures. Biology
will respond to small things over time rather than something big.
And when it does respond to something big, it's reacting. And that means that it will quickly go back when you decide that you can't keep up with that crazy pace anymore.
That's it.
Which is 9 times out of 10 always the case. And it will go back. So what we're trying to do is show you how you can set yourself up for long-term success, so it becomes a lifestyle change, so that you can understand calories and you can use it to your advantage day by day, so that you can sustain the goals that you desire.
And going back to the NEAT as well, so the 15% part of the pie chart, this is the one that has the most leeway. So this can be moved out or in more drastically than anything else. So in the research, this will play a significant part. So think about how much you're twitching, or when you are on a calorie deficit and you are starting to slow down, if you can consciously just start not fidgeting a little bit more, but just be a bit more aware of your walking speed or things like this, and this will help again with the calorie burn.
Just get up more in the day.
Okay. And then on to the third part of the pie is TEF, or thermic effect of food. So again, the 3 macronutrients we eat, when we consume them, they actually have a thermic effect on the body because the body has to metabolize them and assimilate them. And they all have different effects, and they'll be metabolized differently. So for example, fat is the most easily metabolized and it carries the most calories. So this is another one we have to be aware of. So because fat is very easy to eat and it contains a lot of calories, and it doesn't take many calories to break it down and store it. Okay, so of 100 grams of fat, you would burn about 5 grams of it and you would keep 95 grams of it. Okay, so that is maybe even less. It's more like 97, 98 grams. Okay, so you would net 97 or 98 grams and you would burn the other 3. Okay, and then when we get onto carbs, once you eat carbs, you would keep, for example, again, of the 100 grams, 5 to 10 grams would be burnt to metabolize it. And then you would store the 95 grams. Okay, but then when we get onto protein has a thermic effect of food of 20 to 30%. So if you eat 100 grams of protein, it's going to take 20 to 30 of those grams. It's going to be burnt just to process it, and then you will store the rest. Okay, because protein, there isn't anywhere really to store protein. There's a lot of places to store fat, and that's why we're covered in adipose tissue. We're covered in fat because it's our most readily available energy source. So it'll be here to be used for a long time. And there's different metabolic processes they go through. So at the end, once calories come into the body, when they are metabolized, they go through different metabolic processes. They'll turn, so for example, with carbohydrates and protein and fats, they'll turn into pyruvate and then acetyl-CoA, and then they'll go into something called the Krebs cycle, which you might have learned in biology, and then maybe electron transport chain. but they all end up with ATP. So ATP is adenosine triphosphate, and this is the energy currency of the body. So by eating calories, all we're trying to get to is ATP, because every single cell, every single metabolic process in the body is fueled by adenosine triphosphate. So that's that ATP. Okay, so this is how creatine, just going on a quick side tangent, how creatine works. It increases ATP stores within the body. So this is your energy stores. So this is how, this is one of the mechanisms ATP or creatine works within the body. Okay. And then getting down, so thermic effect of food, this can be quite important as well. So this is another reason to eat more protein. And this is the reason why after eating a big, for example, Christmas dinner, you get the meat sweats because you've eaten a lot of protein. That thermic effect of food is actually heating your body up because it's thermic. It's that thermic effect of food. It is warming you up. And that's why you'll start sweating. Okay. Because it is just heating the body up.
So with thermic effect of food on the pie chart, it's roughly about 10%.
Yeah, so about 10%. Yeah. And then the last one we have on the pie chart, so this is the fourth one. This is your exercise activity thermogenesis. So this is your actual designated activity. This is your exercise.
So for example, going to the gym.
Going to the gym, going for a run, whatever it is. But this is only 5%. Sadly, this is only 5% of your total pie chart. So this is not contributing much to getting calories out of the body.
No. So everybody does think, oh, I'll go to the gym, I'll do my session.
Yeah.
And then I'll leave and I'll go and have fish and chips or something because I've done a brilliant session today.
And that's the thing, a lot of people will track on, for example, on their watches. They'll look at their watch and they'll be like, oh, look, I've burned 800 calories. I'll eat that back. But the wearable trackers are horrible at measuring how many calories you've burnt. It doesn't know anything about your physiology. All it knows is your heart rate. Okay. And you can't tell anything off of your heart rate, or you can't tell how many calories you're burning from your heart rate.
No.
Okay. So do not eat back. So a lot of the trackers, even their heart rate is out, especially once you start getting above a certain point. But they've done a lot of scientific studies and they can be like 200% out on what they estimate on your calorie burn. So do not eat back the calories burnt. I had to have a discussion with a client the other day about this and it ruined his day, but he's better for it now because they were literally eating back the calories they had burnt, but that was been massively overestimated. And then you're not losing weight because you're eating back what your watch says. So just don't listen to the watch. So that's the exercise activity thermogenesis. So you have the 4 components. These are the 4 components of your total daily energy expenditure. And they are BMR, so your basal metabolic rate, so you at rest, your NEAT, your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, so just twitching and just moving around how fast you walk. Then you have your thermic effect of food. So this is how much energy is burnt from eating energy, so from eating your calories. And then the last one is exercise activity thermogenesis. And this is 5%, and this is the smallest amount. So there is a lot, as you can see, there's a lot to take into consideration when determining how you want to set your diet up.
Yeah. And you touched earlier that you used to track all your calories, your macronutrients. This was at a time before there was any availability of calculators and trackers and apps online, wasn't it? So you figured it all out manually and you did your own little Excel spreadsheet. That's the extreme case. Now it's super easy for setting you up for this. You have MyFitnessPal and probably a million others now. And it's much easier. They've got such a big database already. You
can literally now scan a product in the supermarket and then all the calories will come up on the phone. So there's a lot of ways to do this now. It's very easy. But I would recommend, instead of just you can just scan it, but then look at the nutrients.
Look at the breakdown after.
It's a really good tool. If you haven't done it, I would definitely recommend looking at the back of foods and seeing what is in them, just to get an idea if this is a more protein food or this is a more fat filled food. Then you're going to get an idea, and then you can start determining which you need to add to your diet to get the most out of your diet. So we'll get into how macronutrients affect how your body looks. So calories determine what size your body is. And then macronutrients, the ratios of macronutrients will determine what you look like at that body size. Because if you have more proteins, if you have more fats, you have more carbs, your body shape will be different. So if you have more proteins, you will retain more muscle, you will have more muscle, so you have that better shape.
This is why if you're weight training, you're resistance training, and you're looking to lose body fat, okay, so bodybuilders, if we're looking at them as an example, it's really important for them to keep their protein consistent all the way through, consistently high, because they are doing so much weight training, and when they're dieting down for a show, they're trying to preserve as much of that muscle as they can, because obviously they need it for their show but that's the whole point, is they're trying to keep that and lose as much body fat on top. So one of their most important macronutrients will be protein.
It should be, it is everyone's most important macronutrient. It comes from the Greek word protease, which means to come first. So even the Greeks know this is what we want to set our diet around. And especially if we're talking fat loss again, you want to keep your protein high, because it's used for so many different things. So for example, what I explained earlier about how the body breaks or metabolizes the nutrients to get to ATP, the body will try not to do that to protein. The body will go through glycolysis to break down carbohydrates to create ATP. The body will go down through beta oxidation to break down fats to create ATP. It can use protein if it has to, but it does not want to, because the body needs protein for so many other reasons. It's what all your antibodies, so your immune system is made up of. It's what enzymes are made up of. It's what literally whole entire hormones are made up of. So insulin is basically just a long chain of amino acids, which are the constituents of protein. So protein is used for so many different things that your body does not want to use it. But if it has to use it because it's not coming in through the diet, then it will break down tissues to get it into the system. So for example, if you train, this is not really how it works, but it's kind of how it works. So if you train your legs and you aren't eating adequate protein, then your body will take protein, for example, from your shoulder to fuel the repair for your legs. And then, for example, if you train shoulders the next day and you don't have adequate protein again, your body's going to steal it from your legs to repair your shoulders. So it's just going to keep going backwards and forwards. So it's going to steal from Peter to pay Paul. And that's just going to continually happen. And then this is why people who go to the gym for a long time, but don't have a good nutritional strategy, they will look exactly the same, because they're literally just stealing protein from different parts of their body to pay the other part. So you never have a net gain of protein. So then you will never have the net protein to build more muscle and change the shape of your body. So this can be a big one, but we will do a whole episode on protein, because protein is so important. And most people in fitness, well, that's a lie, not most people in fitness, but some people in fitness will just say, or people think that it's just for building muscle and recovery, where it is actually so much more than that. So we will get into a whole episode on protein.
I think that would be a good one, because I think because in fitness, lots of people think that that's all that it's for, is to gain and build muscle. I think lots of people get a little afraid and think, well, if I have, protein powders or something, I'm just gonna get big. If only I wouldn't look like this.
I would look a lot bigger than this if that's the case.
If that was the case, everyone would be walking around jacked, shredded, all sorts. It doesn't work like that, particularly for women. God, if I could lift once a week and eat adequate protein and be full of muscle and shredded,
be fabulous.
Well, it would be easy, wouldn't it? And it's not. It's not that easy. It takes hard work and dedication. So when you are looking at the extreme cases of bodybuilders, you're looking at a finished product a lot of the time when they're going on stage of years and years and years of work. Years of dieting properly to increase their muscle mass whilst they're training,
and they know their body so well as well. And it's such a good tool to use, like what we said about going tracking your macros and that kind of stuff, because you do start to learn your body, because people will lean more towards certain nutrients or feel better off certain nutrients, but a lot of us don't really have a clue what we feel better off, because we don't know what we're eating. So you can go through times where you have for example, higher carbs, and you'll see if you feel better off higher carbs or higher fats. People will feel better off certain food sources. So it's also a cool thing just to experiment on yourself. And then you can set yourself up to see So, oh, I feel better off fats, or I feel better off carbs.
Yeah.
Or it's
a balance of trying to get both in.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So it's a brilliant tool to use, and I would definitely recommend everybody trying it. But this episode was more kind of on just the calories in versus calories out. And it doesn't matter if you have higher fats, higher carbs in fat loss. If protein and calories are equated, then it literally doesn't matter if you have higher fat, high carb, low fat. Like there in fitness, there are different camps where people say, no, you've got to have higher fat, or people say, no, you've got to have higher carbs. But if protein and calories are equated, then fat loss, it will be the same.
As long as your energy out is larger than your energy in. Yeah,
that's it. So yeah, if protein and calories are equated, then it literally doesn't matter. So then that's cool. So then you can start seeing, oh, if it doesn't matter, then I can start seeing if I prefer carbs, more carbs, or I prefer more fats. So just see what works for you. But when it comes to the end of the day, if you want to lose weight, you have to adhere to a calorie deficit. And most times people miss out on this is because they are underestimating what they're eating.
Yeah, overestimating their activity and underestimating the food that they're consuming. And this is a huge one. I think, I can't remember what it was, but I don't know. I think I'm getting confused with the 20% out of foods, but there was some percentage that they looked at how much people underestimated the amount they were eating daily.
Yes, and it is a considerable amount.
So a quick tip, if you do decide to track your food, whether that be writing it down manually in a notebook or whether you're using an app to track, my biggest tip would be to make sure that the minute you get your food, you track it straight away. So you're not leaving it till the end of the day and tracking everything at the end of the day, because going back and trying to think of everything you consume that day, you may think you have a good memory, but you don't, because we all mindlessly eat.
And you need the quantities in there as well.
And you do need the quantities. And that's when you start to guesstimate everything again. And you're guesstimating the amount that you've had in a day and forgetting the times that you perhaps mindlessly wandered to the fridge, opened it and picked a couple of snacks out because you were bored or walking, whatever.
Or you went to Starbucks and you got a coffee that was full of cream and milk.
Yeah.
And that easily adds up. So especially also, and another good tip, if you are in a fat loss diet, drinking your calories, I would say, is a no-no, because it is not satiating at all.
Yeah.
And if you are eating a low calorie diet, you want things that are going to keep you full. Otherwise, you're going to get very hungry and you're not going to adhere to the diet. Then you will just jump off. So that'll be another big one. And another big one, if you are going to start a diet. So this is the main reason 80% of people that lose weight will regain weight. I think it's even more than that, actually. I think it's like 90%.
Yeah.
But if you're going to go on a diet, that means you have to come off a diet. So it's a lot better if you can just make lifestyle changes.
Yes.
So don't think about going on a diet, because if you're looking for the best diet on the internet, you're going to find it. Someone's going to sell it to you, and then you're going to go on it. And then eventually you're going to have to come off of it.
Yeah.
And then when you come off of it, this is where you regain the weight, because you haven't learned the beneficial lifestyle techniques to keep the weight off. But through lifestyle techniques and just using good nutritional strategies, you'll be able to keep the weight off forever.
Yeah. So you'll be able to stay at whatever your comfortable, consistent weight, size, energy level, whatever it is that you're trying to achieve by going into a fat loss diet or cutting down your calories.
And this is one of the reasons for, unless it's an athlete, I won't send pre-made diet plans unless it's completely necessary for nutritional deficiencies. I won't send a pre-made diet plan to somebody, because they'll just use that until they've lost the weight or hit the goal they need to hit, and then they'll go back to eating the way they want to eat. So at the beginning, it can be a little bit frustrating, because I want you to, obviously, if for example, when I'm coaching somebody, I want to help them as much as I can, but I also want them to learn the techniques, to learn it for themselves, because I would like to coach everybody forever, but
you don't.
I can, but I want to set people off with the tools to then become autonomous, so then they can do everything themselves.
Yeah.
So if you can learn the techniques, then this is the best thing you can do. So don't just follow a diet plan willy-nilly, because you're eventually going to come off the diet plan and the weight will go back on.
Yeah.
But I think we've rambled for long enough.
In other words, it takes work and commitment.
Yeah, don't tell them that. No, So yeah, it does. But at the end of the day, what we're trying to get from this episode is calories in versus calories out will always be the determining factor of a weight loss diet.
Yeah.
So anyone that's telling you
otherwise,
that is not the case, slap them in the face.
Yeah.
No, don't do that. But yeah, so that is the main thing.
And work on your NEAT. Don't forget your BMR and your NEAT are one of the biggest contributing factors. So if today you can, whenever you're listening to this, maybe take a walk whilst you're doing it, increase that NEAT straight away.
Yeah, there you go.
We'll see you in the next episode.
Cheers, guys.